Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. I received a lot of questions and comments about the other video that I did on our channel talking about how what's good for the average American is actually bad for Wall Street. And so, folks, I appreciate all the comments and the feedback. In this video, I'm going to go over the shocking disparity between what's actually happening in the American economy and how that affects all the rich people. In other words, when you, the average American, when you do well, guess what? The rich don't like it. But when the poor suffer, the rich tend to make a lot more money. And this is a dirty secret that they don't want you to know. Let's start with this image on your screen from the New York Times. Wage growth, which is milder in recent memory, has actually spiked pretty quickly. On this chart, you'll see the median wage growth for hourly workers from the prior year, and it's the 3-month average. So you can start to see that the wage growth has indeed been increasing. However, even though large companies achieved record profit margins in 2021, earnings estimates for many firms are actually declining compared with expectations set earlier this year. In fact, wage inflation, in other words, people making more money, which by the way is seen by many people in the stock market as adding a burden to companies. Wage inflation is actually going to lead to companies not having enough money, not having enough profits because they're paying their employees. And this in turn leads to a reduction. Yes, you heard that right. A reduction in stock values. In fact, the Federal Reserve has shown that the median annual pay increases, which are about 3 to 7%, and they prevailed during the 1980s until the 2007-2009 recession, may actually have a negative impact on the stock market. Now, companies are making more money, but if they start paying higher wages, then they have less money and therefore less profits left over at the end of the day. Now, do I believe big companies should have lower profits and should pay their employees more? Absolutely. But what I'm trying to tell you in this episode of Ignition Time is when they do that, the stock price goes down and the rich people, and the rich people are the ones who own stocks, they see their profitability decline. So they actually want, now think about this, would your boss want to pay you a higher salary or would your boss want to pay you a lower salary so the company makes more profits? Think about that for a second. There's a fundamental disconnect between what the employee wants and what's good for the company's bottom line. In fact, the interests of the employer and the company and the shareholders are not always aligned. Despite this, and you'll see this image on your screen from the New York Times, despite this, corporate profits actually hit new highs last year. Let's take a look at this chart, which shows you the after-tax profits for US corporations, which were seasonally adjusted. It just blows my mind. In 2021, corporate profits exceeded $2.5 trillion. Wow. In this economy, there's an intense competition for workers that actually leads to greater choice, and compensation is higher because basically everyone is making more money. Everyone has more money to spend. And this, in a sense, is what should happen in an economy that's growing. The problem is that when someone gets paid more, that money has to come from somewhere. And again, that money reduces overall profitability. So as far as Wall Street is concerned, in the coming months, many financial analysts say that they'll pay less attention to data on job creation and focus instead on growth in average hourly earnings. In other words, what's important is not just that more jobs are created, but people actually making more money. And you can start to see how this whole phenomenon is actually impacting stocks. Let's take a look at this chart, which shows you how stocks have tumbled so far in 2022. There's been a significant decline in stocks since the start of the year. What's happening is that the stock market is actually falling apart as more and more people are trying to make more and more money. Now, there is an increased demand for labor. This has allowed millions of our fellow Americans to earn a fair wage. However, here's the big problem and the dirty secret. Because of inflation, wages have actually fallen for middle-income workers and high-income workers. They've actually risen for the bottom third of earners on average. Why? Because they were earning so little to begin with, and now they're finally trying to get caught up. But the problem is, because of inflation, the lower third of all earners, even though they are sort of ahead of the middle income earners, they're still left behind because it's hard for them to really take that leap to escape the cycle of poverty that you see on your screen right now. The good news, because there is good news, there is a light at the end of this tunnel, is that many analysts believe that if unemployment stays low enough for long enough, then everybody will benefit. Imagine if we could have a cycle in which employers pay their employees more. Employers run more efficient businesses. In other words, they cut unnecessary costs. They stop paying their CEOs millions of dollars and the CEOs stop flying around in jets. At the same time, if a business can increase capacity, can increase productivity, can improve customer satisfaction, can make sure employees are happy and that customers are happy, well, folks, that would also mean that the business has a healthy balance sheet and that the business is healthy and the business is more profitable, because in this type of a world, everybody wins. So let's wait and see what happens. According to Andrew Flowers, who's a labor economist at Appcast, which is a tech firm, it's possible that over the next few quarters, the labor market continues to be tight despite the Fed hiking, because he feels that there's going to be an overwhelming appetite for hiring. Here's a quote from Brian Belsky, who's a chief investment strategist at BMO Capital Markets. Public companies have become massively efficient, so from an operating performance basis, they've been able to take on these extra costs. At the end of the day, I think for the economy, it's good that we are seeing these sort of wages, he said. Don't ever bet against the US consumer ever. Now, I know, folks, that sounds really nice and warm and fuzzy, but I want you to let me know in the comment section below whether you're doing better and whether you agree that what's good for the average American is actually bad for Wall Street. More importantly, can we achieve a state of economic nirvana where employers make money, stockholders make money, and employees get to live their American dream, get to achieve their American dream? Do you think that that's possible? Do you actually think that we can get there? Let me know in the comment section below. Please check out my introductory video. My name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda with Ignition Time. This is a little bit of information about me. This channel, the Ignition Time channel, is about the country, the economy, as well as our money. When you check out my video, you'll learn how I was able to overcome the cycle of poverty. I have the fortune, the honor, the privilege of living the American dream, and I want to help you live your American dream by helping you look behind the scenes. Thank you so much for watching. Please click like, please click subscribe, please enable notifications. I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.